Hello there, greetings from Colombo everybody. I'm Hassan Shazul and this is Primetime News on News First, where the people come first. Let's start off with a look at your headlines tonight.
UK High Commissioner meets President, stresses the need on respect for human rights. Court orders police to produce the millions in cash found in President's house. Warrants against 2 Argale activists, 6 others banned from travelling overseas. 5 brutal homicides in 48 hours. The government's parliamentary position appears strong, but public support for the government is weaker, says Fitch Ratings. Brought to a split on state of emergency.
මේ අවස්ථාවේදී හදිසි නීති අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා නම් එයට පක්ෂීය ප්‍රතිපත්ති සමග කිසිම ගැටීමක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
හදිසි නීති ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීම ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදු ජන පෙරමුණේ මූලික ප්‍රතිපත්තියට මට යන්නේ.
Not possible to call for polls when people are in queues, says election chief.
දැන් නම් මේ තියෙන වාතාවරණය දිහා බැලුවොත් අපිට නම් වෙන්නේ තාම සුදුසු දේ තමයි නැති කරකට යනවා කියන්නේ.
අපල වෙන්නේ එහෙනම් මේ ඉන්දර පෝලිං වල කියලා තමයි ගන්න පුළුවන් කියන්නේ.
Main sponsor.
Earn a highest interest rate of 21% for 4 months fixed deposits. LB Yasaisuru.
Welcome to the news. In your top story tonight, President Ranil Wickremesinghe has decided to prorogue Parliament with effect from midnight. According to a gazette issued this evening, the next parliamentary session will begin at 10:30 a.m. on the 3rd of August. In rest of the day's stories now, UK's High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Sarah Halton, called on President Ranil Wickremesinghe today. This was for a wide-ranging discussion.
A meeting between UK High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Sarah Halton, and President Ranil Wickremesinghe took place at the Finance Ministry in Colombo. Following the meeting, the High Commissioner tweeted that discussions were regarding the respect for human rights and due process in line with the Unhrc. The High Commissioner further said that both sides are looking forward to strengthening the British and Sri Lankan relationship within a peaceful, democratic and inclusive space.
At the 4th Magistrate's Court today, it was revealed that the 17.8 million rupees found inside the President's house by protesters on the 9th of July is yet to be produced to court as evidence. Now, 4 men who were arrested for being present at the time where the money was being counted on that day were produced in court today as well.
17.8 million rupees in cash was found inside the President's house after the premises were occupied by protesters on the 9th of July 2022, and the money was then handed over to Sri Lanka police. After the money was counted, protesters from Gotagogama live-streamed the handover of the cash to the OIC of the Fort police station. Sri Lanka police on Wednesday arrested 4 men from Slave Island, Colombo, for being present at the premises when the money was being counted and produced them to Fort Magistrate Tilinagamage via a B report. The men were charged with being members of an unlawful assembly and illegal entry. The 4 men were identified as J. Jairam, J. Uday Kumar, Kusal Sandarwan and Abdul Qadir Salim. Counsel appearing for the 4 men informed the court that the money found at the President's house on the 9th of July was securely handed over to Sri Lanka police. Several videos were also produced to the magistrate by the counsel. Fort Magistrate Tilinagamage noted that as per the video footage, it was evident that the suspects were assisting in the handover of the money to the police. At the same time, the Fort Magistrate had questioned the police as to why the Slave Island police was producing suspects to court for an investigation that is done by the Fort police. Police officers informed the court that such measures were taken based on the instructions given by senior officers. The Fort Magistrate also questioned the police with regard to the status of the 17.8 million rupees that was handed over on the 9th of July. Fort Magistrate Tilinagamage said that despite it being 3 weeks since the money was handed over to the police, no report on the money was submitted to the court. Therefore, the Fort Police OIC was ordered by the magistrate to immediately produce the 17.8 million rupees. In addition, Fort Magistrate Tilinagamage ordered the police to submit a report on the money as well. The 4 men who were arrested for unlawfully entering the President's house on the 9th of July were released on personal bail of rupees 500,000 each.
What we
did was a good deed. 17.8 million rupees was handed over to the police officer. Thereafter, the men were arrested and produced in court. The magistrate also pointed out that the money handed over to the police has not been produced to the court. As per section 431 of the Code of Criminal Procedure, the money should have been produced to court and handed over to the court. The OIC of the Fort Police was seen at the Fort Magistrate's Court premises this evening. The case will be called up again on the 5th of August.
Sri Lanka police was back at the Goldface protest site to remove protesters near the Bandan Naika statue.
The OIC of the Fort Police Station, Sagara Liyanage, once again visited the Goldface protest site today.
මේක සෝවියට් සමූහාණ්ඩුව විසින් ලංකා රජය තමයි ඉපදෙන මේක ප්‍රධානයක්. ජාත්‍යන්තර සම්බන්ධතා විනාශ අවස්ථාවක්. ඉතින් මේක කඩලා දානවා කියලා කියන්නේ ලංකාවට ආදරයක් තියපු කියලා නෙමෙයි.
This afternoon, the monks set up their tents away from the 50-meter area. At the same time, a group at the agitation site started work on building a new platform. However, police officers visited the site and informed them that prior approval is necessary for the use of loudspeakers.
Those individuals who wanted to go above the law are not among you. Make a request and ask them to give you the permit, then it will be granted.
පොලිසියෙන් ඇවිල්ලා දැනුවත් කරා මේකට බලපත්‍රයක් ගන්න ඕන. බලපත්‍රය අරගෙන නීති අනුකූලව කරන්න කිව්වා. ඉතින් අපි ඒ අනුව ලිඛිතව ඉල්ලීමක් කරලා නීතිය ඇටියට අනුකූලව මේක කරගෙන යන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා.
Meanwhile, the temporary construction of the tear gas cinema, which was built at the Goldface protest site, was also removed this afternoon.
Now, Anthony Veranga Pushpika, an Aragalia protest activist who was arrested on multiple charges, was remanded until the 9th of August.
Police spokesperson SSP Attorney at Law Nihal Thadua told Newsfirst that Anthony Veranga Pushpika was produced to the Kaduvela Magistrates Court and was remanded in order to be produced in an identification parade. In a statement, the police said the charges against him are engaging in protest in Battaramulla on the 10th of last month in violation of a court order, unlawful assembly, criminal engagement against police officers and causing damage to state property. Anthony Veranga Pushpika serves as a freelance journalist.
On to a related story now. The Colombo Fort Magistrates Court issued arrest warrants against 2 activists today.
The Colombo Fort Magistrates Court issued arrest warrants against Lahiro Veerasekara and Venerable Tampitiya Sugadananda Thera for failing to appear in court for a case that was taken up today. The 2 suspects, Veerasekara and the Venerable Thera, were not present at court when the matter regarding unlawful assembly was called up. At the same time, Colombo Fort Magistrate Thilina Gamage also issued an overseas travel ban on the suspects that were involved in blocking the entrances to the Lotus Road, the Finance Ministry and the President's office in Colombo by organizing an unlawful assembly and causing inconveniences to the public. Accordingly, the travel ban was imposed on Vasantha Mudalige, Joseph Stalin, Lahiro Veerasekara, Ranga Lakmal Devapriya, Eranga Gunasekara and Reverend Father Jivanta Piris. The travel ban was issued after the Fort Police informed the court today that it received intel about the suspects attempting to flee the country. Accordingly, the magistrate who banned the suspects from travelling abroad ordered the relevant order to be communicated to the Immigration and Immigration Controller and the airport.
Another social activist identified as Pathum Kerner was arrested today after he surrendered to the Colombo Crimes Division at 11:45 am. Police spokesperson SSP Attorney at Law Nihal Thaldua said that the arrest of Pathum Kerner was related to the protest at the Poldua Junction.
In the meantime, Attorney at Law Nuwan Bopage was called to the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka today.
Attorney-at-Law Nuwan Bopage visited the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka to make submissions over a complaint filed by him against an assault on the 22nd of July opposite the President's office in Colombo. We provided evidence on how the Triforces were used to control civilians, which eventually have violated the human rights of the protesters that were present at the golf face that night, and how they used emergency regulations as a tool to carry out this suppression. We requested the Human Rights Commission to conduct investigations on who planned this and who gave the orders to the army to attack these peaceful protesters. Many protesters are being arrested across the country and cases are also being filed against them in court. The government led by Ranil Wickremesinghe is using emergency regulations that were brought under the Public Security Ordinance to suppress the people. We also urge the Human Rights Commission to have a proper intervention regarding these emergency regulations.
The 5 gruesome homicides were reported in Sri Lanka within a 48-hour period ending at 8 a.m. today. According to these reports, these murders were carried out using T-56 assault rifles and 9mm handguns.
A 31-year-old man was gunned down inside his home in Veerasena Silva Mawatha, Ratbalana, by 2 armed men who stormed into his house. The victim, Charitumayanga Silva, was a father of 2. The 2 men had broken into the house and opened fire. They were aimed at his wife. This is the second murder in the family. Another in-law was murdered in a similar manner earlier. They had arrived in a car with 3 weapons. This is the underworld and we are ashamed of this. It was revealed that the suspects had opened fire at the victim using a T-56 assault rifle. A 9mm magazine was also found at the crime scene. The suspects responsible for the murder are yet to be identified. Saman Rohitha Pereira, alias Paspodda, who was injured in a drive-by shooting close to the Gampaha court yesterday, has died. 4 people, including Paspodda, were seriously injured in the shooting and were rushed to hospital. An unidentified group in a car had opened fire with a T-56 assault rifle and had fled the scene. Paspodda is considered to be a member of a criminal gang led by Ganemulla Sanjeeva. It is reported that Ganemulla Sanjeeva has fled to India. Paspodda was taken to court on Wednesday with regard to a case filed over an incident where shots were fired at a group including another criminal gang leader known as Hinatiyana Asitha from Minuwangoda. 2 people were gunned down late last night when gunmen opened fire at a funeral house in Galagoda, Ambalangoda. One of the victims was the son of the man who passed away recently, and the shooting took place at his funeral. Police suspect that the shooting is likely linked to the shooting on Tuesday in Urawata, Ambalangoda. A 29-year-old man identified as Vasanta Zoisa was killed in the shooting in Urawata, Ambalangoda on Tuesday. 2 gunmen on a motorcycle had opened fire at him when he was returning from the Balapitiya courts. Vasanta Zoisa was named as the main suspect in the murder of Bennett Ajit, also known as Buru Ajit, who was killed at the Parrot Junction in Ambalangoda on the 22nd of August 2020. One of the men gunned down at the funeral home was Bennett Ajit's brother. A 30-year-old man was brutally murdered yesterday in Habaraduwa. Sri Lanka police said the murder was the result of a dispute between 2 groups and the victim was stabbed in the neck. Police have arrested a 29-year-old man over the murder. On the 26th of July, a 34-year-old man was hacked to death close to the flyover in Orgodavatta. The murder was carried out by 2 men in a luxury car wearing full-face helmets. The deceased 34-year-old was a resident of Meetotamulla. It was later revealed that he is a brother of Dan Priyasad. In recent weeks, motorcycle gunmen armed with T-56 assault rifles carried out multiple murders across the country.
Crime Watch.
The recent crimes have led to questions over the delay in arresting the criminals responsible. Now, these were the views expressed by Senior DIG Ajit Rohana in this regard today.
In addition to arresting these criminals and maintaining law and order in the country, the police is now vested with an additional duty to maintain peace at queues in filling stations. The scope of our duty has completely changed during the past few months.
Now the news tonight, Tamil National Alliance parliamentarian M.S. Sumandran has condemned the arrest of the protesters in recent days.
There is a great oppression by the authorities in the country today. There were protesters for over 4 months. They have been protesting peacefully. They have done what many in the world were unable to do. They have ousted a corrupt regime, a corrupt family. The country ought to be grateful to them for having accomplished this task without any violence. Yet, now the authorities are hunting them down, seeking to arrest them. This must be condemned by everybody. Yesterday in Parliament, the government MPs were heard to say that originally the agitators, the protesters were peaceful, but now someone else has come and hijacked this process. If that be so, why are you going against the original agitators? You are targeting by name and looking for people who have been there from the very beginning, who are responsible for this great change that occurred in the country. So we condemn this.
News First with the people.
For our people who are starving, for those who suffer in silence, for the people in need, breaking barriers and bringing hope to their lives. Across rural Sri Lanka, Gammadda, for the people, by the people.
Main sponsor.
Earn a highest interest rate of 21% for 4 months fixed deposits. LB Yasaisuru.
Welcome back to the news. Now, Fitch Ratings has said the government's parliamentary position appears to be strong, but that public support for the government is weak. It said that parliament and the government remain dominated by politicians closely affiliated with the Rajapaksa family. Now, according to Fitch, this may increase the risk of further destabilizing protests if economic conditions do not improve in the country.
Fitch Ratings said that the successful formation of a government under the new President Ranil Wickremesinghe is an important precondition for resolving Sri Lanka's debt default, but many challenges remain as the country seeks financing support from the IMF and debt restructuring from private and official bilateral creditors. Fitch expects any reform package agreed with the IMF by the government to include elements such as higher taxes, expenditure rationalization and a commitment to a greater degree of exchange rate flexibility. However, it said that there is a significant risk that such reforms could cause public opposition that might impede their implementation. In the absence of an IMF deal, Sri Lanka is expected to face a very strained external position in the near term. The country has little foreign exchange to pay, even for essential imports such as fuel, food and medicines, with official reserve assets at just $1.9 billion as of the end of June. Fitch said the debt negotiations could be complicated by debt owed to China, and this amounted to $5 billion at the end of 2020. China has traditionally preferred to offer relief for large loans through deferrals such as maturity extensions, payment rescheduling or grace periods, rather than through write-outs. However, this approach could increase challenges for Sri Lanka to successfully negotiate debt restructuring with other creditors, including private creditors that delivers the debt sustainability sought by the IMF. Fitch rates Sri Lanka's long-term foreign currency issuer default rating at RD, that is restricted default. Fitch may move Sri Lanka's long-term foreign currency issuer defaulting rating out of RD upon the sovereign's completion of a commercial debt restructuring that we judge to have normalized the relationship with the international financial community.
The head of the US government aid agency has called on China to offer debt restructuring support to Sri Lanka and other nations that have borrowed heavily from Beijing, instead of simply providing lines of credit and emergency loans.
But perhaps nowhere is India's commitment to those in peril more on display, actually, than right now in Sri Lanka. The economic catastrophe faced by the Sri Lankan people has many sources: economic mismanagement and corruption, unwise agricultural policies, self-inflicted debt burdens, and a tourism sector crushed by COVID. All of this compounded by food and fuel price pressures that all countries are facing has led the government to default on its debt, has led the price of vegetables to double, the cost of basic food staples like rice and fish to skyrocket, and brought about a stunning lack of fuel at any price. Drivers report waiting in long queues for days sometimes to fill up their tanks. And that is in the fortunate circumstances if they can find fuel at all. On behalf of President Biden and the American people, that our hearts go out to the people of Sri Lanka during this time of great trial with the People's Republic of China, which has been an increasingly eager creditor of Sri Lankan governments since the mid-2000s. Indeed, over the past 2 decades, China became one of Sri Lanka's biggest creditors, offering often opaque loan deals at higher interest rates than other lenders, and financing a raft of headline-grabbing infrastructure projects with often questionable practical use for Sri Lankans, including a massive port that generated little income and was barely used by ships, an equally massive airport dubbed the emptiest in the world because it attracted so few passengers, and the country's tallest tower that was built as a tourist attraction yet has never, unfortunately, opened to the public. Now that economic conditions have soured, Beijing has promised lines of credit and emergency loans. This is critical, since Beijing is estimated to hold at least 15% of Sri Lanka's foreign debt. But calls to provide more significant relief have so far gone unanswered. And the biggest question of all is whether Beijing will restructure debt to the same extent as other bilateral creditors.
නිවෙස පුරා ගලන මේ සතුට සුරක්ෂිත කරන්නේ Eslon Inside. Eslon ජීවයයි ජලය ජීවිතේ.
Eva Trusted Confidence now has a fresh new feel. For the first time in Sri Lanka, Eva unveiled an antibacterial layer to minimize microbial growth and control odor, helping you stay fresher throughout the day. Now with maximum absorption. Available in cotton feel wings for maximum comfort and Drytex wings for maximum dryness. Eva, leading with confidence.
Welcome back to the news. We've got some news coming in from the political spectrum now. Several roundtable discussions on establishing an all-party government took place today as well. But there are questions on who will join the all-party government.
The Sri Lanka Freedom Party held discussions with the President on establishing an all-party government at the Ministry of Finance this afternoon.
සර්වපාක්ෂික රජයකට බලාපොරොත්තු තියාගන්න පුළුවන්ද ජනතාවට?
මට ඒක 100% කියන්න බෑ.
I cannot give you a clear assurance on that. The President and the government should take the initiative and the responsibility in forming this all-party government. They should invite the other political parties into this all-party government. Establishing an all-party government will play a vital role in restoring our nation and in obtaining foreign assistance.
වැදගත් සර්වපාක්ෂික ආණ්ඩුවක් හදන එක.
Now, the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna is on 2 separate positions on certain matters, including the state of emergency that has been imposed in the country.
The chairman of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, flanked by several other MPs, stressed that the proclamation of the state of emergency was against party policies. The state of emergency is in complete violation of the party policies. The state of emergency and our policies are never aligned together. Imposing a state of emergency is a very serious decision that leads to serious results. The result is that the fundamental rights of the people are curtailed. The written law is where the people's rights are enshrined upon. The state of emergency goes beyond that, as its imposition does away with all these laws and makes them invalid.
ये පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේදී 41 දෙනෙක්
41 MPs were not present in Parliament yesterday to cast their vote. I believe there is no doubt as to who these MPs represent. Every faction has requested us not to use violence as a means of entertainment and not to be party to any governance that leads to destructions. In mathematics, the concept is that when two negatives come together, it forms a positive. But that does not apply in reality.
ධර්මතාවයන් වලදී වැරදි දෙකක් හරියක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
මම තමුන්නාස්ලට කියන්න ඕනේ අද මේ සිටින කණ්ඩායමෙන් කිසිම කෙනෙකුට
The ruling faction did not allow any of us seated here to speak in Parliament yesterday. The state of emergency can be abused. We are against it. Those moving the state of emergency are those who violated the common law during the government of good governance. They used the loopholes for political persecution and set up various suppressive bodies.
ඒ මර්ධනයට ගියාට මේ හදිසි නීතිය නැවත අවභාවිතා කරන්න පුළුවන්.
දැන් අපි ඊයේ ආණ්ඩු පක්ෂයේ අසුන් ගත්තේ.
We were seated in the ruling faction yesterday. It's too soon to predict what may happen in the future.
මේ මොහොතේ එවැනි අවස්ථාවක් මතුවෙලා නැහැ.
මේ හිටපු ජනාධිපතිතුමා කිව්වේ අපි දැන් මේ අපේ පක්ෂෙන් දැලස්ව දැම්ම නමුත් එයා කිව්වේ නැහැ කියලා. මොකද ඔබතුමාගේ අදහස?
මම එතුමාට නිදුක් නිරෝගී සුවය ප්‍රාර්ථනා කරනවා.
විමල්වීර වංශ මහත්මයාගේ සහාය ලැබුණේ ඔබතුමාටද?
ඔව් පැහැදිලිව.
ඔබතුමා තාමත් පක්ෂ සභාපතිවරයාද? ඔව්. තාම? ඔව්.
Attorney at Law Sagara Karyawalsam is the General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. He has also commented on the state of emergency in the country.
The people who have faith in the Rajpaksas will see that the truth will be revealed soon. And on that day, the people who love this country will once again join us. This national force was created by the Rajpaksas, and today it has suffered a serious blow. First, the rule of law needs to be established. The president is taking the necessary steps. As the most powerful political party, the SLPP is taking all possible measures.
Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna මේ රටේ තියෙන ප්‍රබලම දේශපාලන පක්ෂය හැටියට ඒ සියලු ප්‍රයත්නයන්හි නියැලී සිටින බව ප්‍රකාශ කරන්න කැමැතියි.
වෙලා තියෙන ඔබතුමාලගේ පක්ෂයේ කණ්ඩායමක් කැඩිලා ගිහිල්ලා නේද ගැලවිලා?
ඒක කණ්ඩායමක් කැඩිලා ගැලවිලා ගිහිල්ලා.
It's not a question of whether a group broke up or not. What's important to us is what happened. As a party, it was decided to invite GL Piris to that meeting, and he said that he could not come. But we could see that in the recent past, individuals who attempted to destroy the majority power of the SLPP in Parliament, who had written letters asking Mahinda Rajapaksa to resign from the post of Prime Minister, and those groups that wrote letters to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa asking him to hand over the post of President are being dragged into another political conspiracy.
රාජපක්ෂ ජනාධිපතිවරයාට ජනාධිපති තනතුර අතාරින්න කියලා ලිපි ලියපු කණ්ඩායම් වෙනත් දේශපාලන කුමන්ත්‍රණයකට ආරාධනා.
GL පීරිස් මහත්මයා සඳහන් කරලා තියෙනවා දැන් අද හදිසි නීතිය ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීම මේ පොදු ජන පෙරමුණේ ප්‍රතිපත්තිවලට විරුද්ධයි.
මේ වගේ ඉල්ලීමක් කිරීම ගැන මම
I am sorry for making such a statement. The policies of the party is another matter. I will not accept that it is a struggle. Do you know that houses of a quarter of the ministers were burnt? I did not see it as a struggle. It was a rebellion. Maybe there were individuals who were protesting, but behind the struggle there was an anti-government conspiracy.
කැරැල්ලක් අරගල කරපු පුද්ගලයන් ඉන්න ඇති. නමුත් අරගලය පිටිපස්සේ රාජ්‍ය විරෝධී කුමන්ත්‍රණකාරී කැරැල්ලක් තියුණා.
Now, Elections Commissioner Attorney at Law Nimal Punjihewa called on the chief prelates of the Malwathu and Asgiri chapters in Kandy today.
During this meeting, the elections chief presented a proposal to the chief prelates, which consisted of 28 proposals they expect to make to the electoral system in the country. The whole country and the parliament is in disarray. The same people are appointed as the president, prime minister and the cabinet. Nothing has changed. Once they get some position, they always visit us with an atpirikara seeking our blessings. But they won't do any good to the people. We need to have a sensible change. Under these circumstances, we feel that going for an election is the best option. It's going to be hard, but we need it because the people who were rejected once by the public are holding vital positions in the government. People are under enormous pressure. They are frustrated. If we are to hold elections, we will have to have the polling booths in fuel stations where there are queues. Therefore, first we need to solve this fuel and gas shortage and source funding to conduct an election.
In other news, opposition leader Sajid Premadasa met small and medium-scale industrialists today.
දේශපාලඥයෝ තනතුරු දෙසා ඇමති සූදුවේ නියැලී සිටින.
Politicians are engaged in sinister activities for ministerial positions. At such a moment, the small and medium-scale industrialists have become extremely helpless. This sector, which provides livelihood to around 4.5 million people, which contributes to more than 50% of the country's gross domestic product, has completely shrunk today. We want the government, instead of launching circulars, please suspend the implementation of this law for a limited time. I would like to ask if the rulers of this country have a law of parate. Does the law of parate apply to super millionaires? Do they ever think of granting relief to these people?
සුපිරි කෝටිපතියන්ට පරාටේ නීතිය ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවද? මේ ඉන්න පුංචි මිනිස්සුන්ට මොහොතකටවත් හිතනවද ණය පොඩ්ඩක් කපාලා දෙන්නට ඕන? පරාටේ නීතිය ලිහිල් කරන්නට ඕනේ කියලා.
Well, today was a special day for cricketing fans in Sri Lanka and Pakistan who witnessed a thrilling encounter in Galle today. Let's take a look at the latest sporting action after this short commercial break. Stay with News First. We will be right back.
මොකද මහත්තයා මේ?
නෑ මේ ගෙදර සිංක් එකේ
අයි මහත්තයා ස්නෝන් නෙවෙයිද දැම්මේ?
හදිස්සියට බාලා පයිප් එකක් දැම්මේ. නැද්ද මුදලාලි ඊයේ පෙරේදා කඩේ රිපෙයාර් කරන්න ගෙනාපු ගම් චුට්ටා.
මේ වගේ ප්‍රශ්න වලට හොඳම විසඳුම ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටා. හැබැයි ඉක්මනින් දාගන්න ස්ලෝන් පයිප් එකක්.
ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටා හැම ගෙදරකම සිටිය යුතු ජනනල කාර්මිකයා දැන් රංගම ග්‍රොසරියෙන් මිලදී ගන්න.
Welcome back to the news. Now today, Gammadha began yet another project to distribute dry rations to selected families across the country. The project is supported by IPAX IT Consulting Private Limited.
IPAX IT Consulting Private Limited is a company developing software solutions for international companies. The project was launched in the Tibirigasyaya Divisional Secretariat in Colombo, where dry rations were distributed among families of those with hearing and speech impairments. The Divisional Secretary of Tibirigasyaya, Priyanta Disanayaka, the manager of IPAX Consulting Private Limited, Gayan Shavinda Ekanayaka, manager of Human Resources, Nuangi Vijayaratna, and the General Secretary of Gammadha, Prasanna Atukorala, were among those present at the event.
During these trying times in Sri Lanka, during the economic crisis, we as IPAX, we came together as a community and as one organization, and our employees themselves, they suggested we should give something back to the society, and collectively we came together and we raised over $12,000. We are so glad to be a part of this with Gammadha. In the 12 districts, we are going to donate over 500 ration packs, and we are going to continue to support Gammadha and to be a helping hand for the community.
The Assistant Divisional Secretaries Gayan Milinda, Dhammika Vikramasinghe and social service officials Champika Priyavardhana were also present at the event. Smiles lit up the faces of these families who benefited under this project in the Tibirigasyaya Divisional Secretariat.
The Divi Savya program to uplift the lives of poverty-stricken families in Sri Lanka was held in the Matale district today. The program is supported by LOLC Holdings.
The second phase of the Divi Savya program to uplift the lives of poverty-stricken families continued for the 22nd day today. Today, food rations were distributed among families in the Matale district. The Divi Savya program aims at supporting low-income families amidst the economic crisis.
Sports, it's cricket. Prabhat Jayasuriya starred with a 5-wicket haul as Sri Lanka won the second test match against Pakistan by 246 runs to level the series today.
Prabhat Jayasuriya got Aga Salman out for 4 at the stroke of lunch in Galle to leave Pakistan needing an inconceivable 320 to win or to ride out the last 2 sessions for a draw and a 1-0 series victory. The tourists were 188 for 5 with Azam batting on 76 after 4 wickets fell in the morning session as Pakistan resumed on 89. Off-spinner Ramesh Mendis struck on his first ball of the day to get Unhrc caught behind, with the left-handed batsman adding just 3 to his overnight 46. Jayasuriya, who took 1 wicket on day 4, cut short Mohammad Rizwan's stay on 35 with his left-arm spin. Fawad Alam was run out for 1. The hosts were racing against time to bowl the opposition out and level the 2-test series, with overcast conditions and looming rain a threat in the port city, after bad light bringing early ends to days 3 and 4. Well, you're up to date with the latest stories here on News First. Thanks for stopping by. Don't forget, more news follows on our website. www.newsfirst.lk is the address. I've been Hassan Shazali. Take care and good night.